We are on, and the experimentation continues here, folks. A series of unusual decisions for you today, and how far they can go, whether it's in this art piece here or Cosimo de' Medici telling Marsilio Ficino to translate those Platonic manuscripts. Another big correction for us that we will learn from. Artist Journal, January 16th, 2023, broadcasting to the world from Berlin, Germany. My name is Adrian Pocobelli. I welcome you back. Thank you for coming back, and welcome to all new subscribers. As per usual, the drama continues here. Look at this. I mean, to me, this is a stunning work. Maybe a sign of my evolving appreciation of digital art here. Look at this. Again, Hasdrubal Waffle with Arlen Maltby. And yeah, editions of 10, you can get on secondary for 50. I think someone might have, it was on for 35. Someone probably picked that up. Let's just take a quick look here. Oh no, they raised the price. Wisely, I think. This is going to go. Maestro Museum was able to get it for 20. So, I don't know. Like, I just look at this and I say, like, if I'm contemporary art world and I don't have exposure to this scene and what's going on over here, or if I'm MoMA and I don't know, someone sent me a link like 2 or 3 months ago about what MoMA's doing, and I never listened, and I should have, and maybe I can still dig it up. But I'm just wondering, like, are they in the collectors here? Because only from my perspective, and I admit my perspective may be totally different than most, and I'm totally cool with that. This is a artist journal, my private thoughts shared publicly, but if I'm MoMA, and I'm thinking to myself, and I don't have exposure to this, the more I see works like this, the more concerned I start to be. Okay? I love how Eilay calls it MoMA 2, her collection. I love that. I totally love that. So anyways, a stunning piece and just kind of wild. I mean, it looks like the liquefy tool or something is being used with this abstraction in the face in the background. I mean, the portrait is basically a placeholder for experimentation here, isn't it? I mean, so we have the liquefy, what seems to be a liquefy tool, and even the hair seems to be kind of like maybe digitally painted. And I don't know if this is Mario paint in the background here with these beautiful kind of colors. And even like the faded frame, you know, the gradient frame, 2600 AD. Again, the gradient. This is a gorgeous work of art, I would maintain. And even that yellow, like, and the thing is, like, I mean, just like in the contemporary art world, what's beautiful is it does, I mean, if you're not used to this kind of experimental art, it does challenge your aesthetic sensibility. But once you get it, then you're just like all for it, right? And that's kind of what the contemporary art world has to a certain degree. I think that's what they would argue is like, look, we have a lot more daring conceptual experimentation over here rather than the monkey JPEGs that you guys are playing with in the NFT scene. But I think when you see work like this, again, if I'm that scene, if I'm like, and a lot of those people do have exposure, to be fair. I mean, I don't want to, you know, but I'm just saying if I come from what some people call the trad art world or the contemporary art world, and I don't have kind of exposure to this, and I'm like a gallery or a museum, the more I see stuff like this, the more concerned I would just be and go, am I missing something very important here? So a fantastically gorgeous work of art, Future Primitives. Reminds me, Future Primitive, great title. Wasn't that Research Publications from the 80s? Shall we research Future Primitive? I don't know if you guys know Research Publications. Maybe I have it wrong. Okay. Research Publications, Vail out of San Francisco. He actually knew William Burroughs and J.G. Ballard. He interviewed them. Some very important modern primitives. Yeah, research. Tattoo. Like, Vail was doing it, like, he was out of the punk scene out of San Francisco, V. Vail. And yeah, so he put out about 15 books like this. Research Publications. This is like underground lore. Like here you see, this was very famous. Still is. I mean, J.G. Ballard quotes. You have William Burroughs. Here's him and there's Vail. So anyways, a quick surprise, in this experimental episode, he came out of the punk scene. He actually he started research publications off a $100 gift from Allen Ginsberg, who, because he was out of San Francisco and he's working at City Lights Books. So a brief history of research publications. This is Arlen Maltby. Now, a lot of us are going to know Hasdrubal Waffle from the work we were just looking at. So they collaborated, but Arlen Maltby you might not be as familiar with. So doing some watercolors here, again, kind of experimental. So here they both collaborate on this. I think I picked this up. This is a collaboration with Santiago. So the power of collaborations as well. All you artists who are joining Tezos and who are already on it, you see how powerful it is, because now I'm looking at Arlen Maltby when I was, following either Hasdrubal Waffle or Santiago. A quick shout out and thank you to Dern Adler for picking up this nostalgia study here, made on Procreate, a digital drawing of Lego Classic Space instructions. Thank you for picking it up, 1 of 1 for 25, and thank you to Austin for picking up Beach. So they continue to still have 4 left. I'm surprised because I keep showing these works. Anyways, thanks guys. Thank you very much. This is great. And the news, courtesy of our artist friend Minta, 1 Tezo equal $1. So great news for artists, I would say. Not as great news for collectors, but let's face it, things are still pretty cheap out there, although it's getting more competitive out there. What's interesting is I haven't seen like a slowdown in collecting, even though Tezos has gone up like 40%, back from 70 cents, right? So isn't that interesting? So again, good news for artists and a little celebration. Is this good or bad? Depends on where you're coming from. Great for artists, I would say. I'd say good. Now, we also like to look at displays here. So Luis Ponce. Look at these square displays, how effective they are with his work. So he makes square work. So just kind of interesting, isn't it? I mean, the problem with these displays, of course, is if you have like a rectangular work, or just like the same problem we have with the 16 by 9, which is a super awkward format, it never seems to fit. That's why I'm kind of always, it's beautiful. This looks great. This looks beautiful, but I'm still kind of a projector is the solution, because otherwise you can only show square works. But not to take away, I mean, this looks fantastic. It's a relief for me to see a square frame, because we've been dealing with these super awkward 16 by 9s. So nice. What do you do with your JPEGs? You show them off, GM. So very cool, Luis Ponce, who we've looked at in the past. Now turning to Sabato. Remember we looked at that, Hasdrubal called it a masterpiece. I don't disagree. Boo, that work from Friday. If you didn't see that, go to Friday's episode. This was interesting. D-Paint, which is what Sabato uses, that Amiga 1200 software, has a great little spare page that functions like a sandbox, and this is what my spare looked like after finishing Boo and Repose. If you're wondering, this is where the exercise and drawing exercises come in. Lots of trial and error with dithering patterns and glasses. So that's pretty cool. I thought to myself, like, is that for sale? That would be a beautiful 1 of 1 Sabato. And you gotta love, one of my favorite parts of that entire thing is the iPad. I think it's just beautifully done. And I mean, the patterns and everything. It's a gorgeous work of art. I don't disagree with Hasdrubal's assessment there. A beautiful work of art. Pinky Blue, again, just like the works in progress sort of section here. So this is Asperite, and I just thought this was interesting because Pinky Blue, if I remember, does a lot of, well, let's just bring it up here. Does a lot of kind of pixel artwork in pink and blue. Yeah, you see here? So here is some Pinky Blue. We've looked at them in the past, and so it's just interesting to see them at work here. And here it's almost like they have some textures going on. Almost like that, I think it's Mario Paint that Hasdrubal is using, where you get like that fake drop shadow of texture. So pretty cool. I even like how you can see the canvas underneath. Just looking good and interesting over here. Pixels are the limit from Pinky Blue. And also another work in progress, this time from Rare. I swear, who's doing very well, by the way. I swear sometimes the in-progress crops look so fun to just stop and say it's done, almost done with this commission. Probably would be faster if I put away Twitter. Yes, for all of us. Rare. So anyways, just interesting to see how he's working here, isn't it? Puts that red outline over this very, very rough background. So I just think that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts. It's almost like, if I had to guess, and I'm probably wrong, but if I had to guess, what he's doing is before the red outline is there, just try and do it with just look at your reference and then paint it in, and then you kind of trace out a little bit your actual reference and you put it on top, and then you start to get something like this where it's not perfectly outlined, and that's good, right? So I'm just guessing. But anyways, it looks cool and cool to see the process. Now, this was going around wafflesdraw.blogspot. Let me clear this. So there was this tool that people were putting. So again, wafflesdraw.blogspot, and I just thought it was interesting. So here's some color. You can change the color. And you see actually how fun. I almost wonder if we're going to see another work, and I'm going to show. So then you can do a person, and I think these are fake people, in the sense that AI, I think, makes them. So, and then you can play with all this different stuff. So very, like you see. So anyways, we are making art online. So all to say, cool tool, and I think it might give us a clue. And we're going to look at some more Has Dribble Waffle here today. Also, Agor AI sent me a message, just an interesting kind of shout out. So Reachback is Xcopy, okay? And we all remember when Xcopy bought these Uxines and all mayhem ensued. And so Igor's like, hey, check it out. Xcopy just picked up some Louis Osborne. So isn't that interesting? And then I went to Louis Osborne's activity, and let's just load it up again. Yeah, 9 minutes, 14 minutes, 20 minutes, 30. So you see the Xcopy effect, right? And for those that aren't aware, Xcopy is he's probably sold for the most money and is kind of like one of the most beloved artists on the whole blockchain. Everybody who kind of pays attention to the NFT scene, art scene, basically knows who Xcopy is. So when he starts buying an artist, it's social proof on steroids. And social proof, again, is when, the reviews in Amazon, when someone says it's good, then you get excited about that product and you want to buy it. If you see a whole bunch of people saying it's good, that's social proof. It's anthropological, it's human nature. So when someone like Xcopy starts buying your work, you see, this is what happens. All mayhem ensues, because then collectors follow suit. Look at this. Edition of 25 selling for 225, right? So giving a nice charge to Louis Osborne's market here, courtesy of Xcopy. So I don't want to, this is pretty small text, and I don't want to get too far into it. But this work here, so we were talking, and this is important because we're discussing this whole idea of a digital renaissance. And for us to actually know what we're talking about in that respect, again, because don't think that people aren't going to be criticizing the hell out of everything I say or you say as a NFT lover, okay? There are all sorts of people out there who are just going to want to criticize, and you guys don't know what you're talking about. So it's important that we know what we're talking about if we're going to start talking about a digital renaissance, okay? So part of this, we were going into how important it was that Cosimo de' Medici, the oldest of the first kind of who, not the oldest, but I think he's the guy that started the banks, but now I'm starting to ad-lib again. Let's just look here, though, very quickly. The most famous of all stories about the Platonic Academy of Florence is the story of its founding. According to the traditional account, Cosimo de' Medici, during the Council of Florence in 1439, repeatedly heard the neo-pagan philosopher Gemistus Pletho delivering lectures on Plato, and was inspired by his contact with the Byzantine to refound the Platonic Academy in his own city of Florence, the new Athens of Italy. Recognizing, however, that the time was not yet ripe for such an undertaking, he bided his time for almost a quarter of a century until he recognized in the young Marsilio Ficino, who did the translations, the instrument through which his design might be accomplished. Noticing his attraction to Platonic philosophy, Cosimo arranged for the young man to learn Greek. In due course, Cosimo gave Ficino a manuscript of the complete works of Plato, a house in Florence, and a house near his own villa at Careggi, which was to become the center of the new Platonic Academy. These gifts were bestowed in 1462, the year which is usually taken to be the precise foundation date of the Florentine Academy. Under Cosimo's patronage, continued by his descendants Piero Lorenzo and Piero di Lorenzo, the Accademia Careggiana flourished and became the spiritual home of the Florentine Renaissance in the later Quattrocento, 1400s, numbering among its membership many luminaries here. Okay, so this is important because, it's back to this, I don't know if I was mentioning this at the start, this idea of unusual decisions. None of this had to happen. Cosimo didn't have to get this, didn't need to be a patron of Marsilio Ficino to start translating the Platonic corpus into Latin from Greek. Okay, and we kind of assume, looking back, that this is, again, just all God's providence, and this all had to happen, that the Renaissance had to follow the Dark Ages and all these things. None of this had to happen. These are a series of, this is how an unusual decision can change the course of history, okay? And I don't know if we have any more information here. When Cosimo decided to refound Plato's Academy at Florence, he chose Ficino as its head. In 1462, Cosimo supplied Ficino with Greek manuscripts of Plato's work, whereupon Ficino started translating the entire corpus into Latin. And this is also interesting, and this is also finally important. Ficino also produced a translation of a collection of Hellenistic Greek documents founded by Leonardo da Pistoia, later called the Hermetica. So this is the Hermetic corpus, and the writings of many Neoplatonists, including Porphyry, Iamblichus, and the very important Plotinus. So now the Hermetic, how I was saying it was the Platonic dialogues that were translated first? It was actually the Hermetic, if I remember the essay correctly that I read, 10 years ago. It was the Hermetic corpus that Cosimo wanted translated first, and that is a whole other area. It was thought to be, ancient Egypt, from ancient Egypt, but really, according to this scholar, is more probably Gnostic from the 200s. We're going very deep in there, but this is necessary, my friends, in order for us to know what we're talking about, okay? This is an artist journal. I'm sharing my private thoughts publicly, in case you thought it was a news program. Anyways, a beautiful work by Dana Ulama was just released, and yeah, she's got a new iPad, so check it out. And this was just released on Super Rare, a 2 ETH reserve price, so not cheap, but she sells for pretty well and already getting quite a few views on there. No bids yet. Procreate and Photoshop, late 2022. Continuing on, Ratcloxy, a man in a boat with a dog. Now, this kind of reminded me, I was like, I thought it was a Manet. It kind of, I'll show you, and then we'll look closer at this work here. I guess it's Gustave Caillebotte, but I thought there was a Manet of someone, at the boat. So I don't know if this is the reference, but it sure feels with like the rowboat. To me, this has Impressionism written all over it as far as the source. Maybe it's Caillebotte, who's a very interesting artist as well, great Impressionist artist. I'm not sure. So cool work by Ratcloak. Great to hear from him. He is under duress there in Ukraine, probably just struggling to get power. And so look at this, all the detail that we have come to know and love in Ratcloxy. And what I love, again, it's sort of like my dad would say when he was a kid going to the Vatican, how rough it was when you go up to like a Raphael even, and the old masters, you see how actually rough it is when you're up close. Is you don't see that from the book. And that's what I kind of like about Ratcloak too, is the roughness when you go up close, but then you go from a ways away and you just go, oh, okay. So it's interesting, and it's just contrast here. Like feels like a bold decision probably when you're first doing on top of this kind of fuzzy, digital painting put this strong, square pixel brush, this pixel brush, but it's beautiful. And it's, like it feels very modern. This is modern. To me, this is modern digital painting, right? Look at this. Look at how rough it is, in a good way. And you see just the care that went into this piece, okay? And even in the background here. So just kind of interesting, right? You see how the paintbrush just over top, you see how, again, how rough it is. I love that. Okay, and then the figure, maybe a self-portrait perhaps. So anyways, and then this very painterly boat. So anyways, beautiful work from Rat Cloak. It went very quickly on primary, and now it's on secondary. What is it selling for? It's already selling for 48. There's an offer for 28. Last sale was 35 to the Pearl collection, so it's doing very well. Interesting colors too, aren't they? Interesting light. Continuing on, rustic digital art with a few pieces. This was a really crazy one. I mean, they're by design, at least according, as far as I understand, by design, these are as irrational as possible, really, or very irrational. A response to AI, if I remember rustic digital art correctly. This series is a response to kind of the super rational AI. Let's do something that's just totally irrational. Again, that kind of experimentation and sophistication. So it looks like Mark Zuckerberg, nothing in here. And we have the cropped Mario, and like outrageously cropped Mario. Best Buddies, Escalona 2023 from the Cloud period. So a pretty attractive painting too, I might add. So again, this experimentation here is making me very kind of bullish, more bullishness for the scene. Because to me, this kind of experimentation, is it hard to read it as any other way than as kind of sophistication of sorts? I mean, isn't it? Here's more. So the Super Mario, Men Looking Southeast, made out of the cropped Super Mario. And we should see actually how much these are going for. So edition of 1, sold for a mere 20 at auction here. 20 Tezos. And what did this go for? This was a really good looking work here. Went for 60. Listed for 60, sold for 60. So nice prices, actually. I mean, good for the collector and good for the artist. Because 60 is not bad, right, on Tezos, And more just wild experimentation. I mean, it looks like John and Yoko here. So adding photo, I mean, I just can't stress enough how hard it is to be this irrational. It's really difficult because you just go, no, you can't do that. Is what you say to yourself when you're building something like this. So it's very, very interesting what's going on. Crazy for You, that sounds like a John Lennon song or something, sold for 50 to Ergodo to Igordo. Shout out to Igordo, big collector on Tezos. So interesting works here. Back to Hasdrubal. So this is a pure Hasdrubal waffle work. This was just released this morning, this stunning one of one. And I was starting to wonder to myself, is this actually using partly that photo generator? Because in here, it looks like a photo that's being dragged, similar to what we were seeing in the experimentation. Remember that waffle draws page? And so anyways, I think the texture in here and the richness, again, look at the experimentation that's going on here. And there's something, the fact that it's moving too, and even here you have a photo, there's something very resolved about this. Like, there's something actually quite persuasive. I mean, I'm kind of back to that David Hickey, that Texas art historian, now passed away. Undeniable is undenied. An undeniable artwork will be undenied. And there's something kind of, that's what this makes me think of. And again, these great outlines. So it looks like Mario paint is used as well, maybe. I'm just guessing. These very rich textures in the background. There's something very natural and feel free-flowing about this. I'm into CB. My codename Cedar Plank. Maybe the CB oil, who knows? I have put in an offer. We'll see. We'll see if... hopefully that is accepted by the time this video comes out. Otherwise, there's no way I'm getting that. Burgle Time. And this was another one that came out. So this was slightly different. And again, you see how it's the faces being dragged here. So I think that waffle draws is being used here. I don't know if he made that tool. It's very possible. And even in here, you see like a bunch of faces. So I'm loving this idea of the portrait basically being a placeholder, a template of sorts to fill in and to do all your experimentation with. I think that's a super interesting, simple way of approaching painterly experimentation or digital art experimentation because it kind of grounds it all into composition, a portrait. But then you can kind of do whatever you want here. And okay, we'll put some bacon and in the hands, and you can literally do almost anything. Fascinating. Burgle time. This might have been burned. I'm not sure. Continuing on, edition of 8, Smoko. So again, it seems like this kind of sampling of faces is like, you see it's kind of fuzzy, but you kind of see it here that's being used as just like in here it looks like that. So I don't know if that waffle draws tool is being used for here. I wonder if they're using like their own waffle draws tools where they're not just sampling the face, but they're sampling this pattern and whatever. Like, are they using, I see Ilay is putting out JavaScript painting, whatever. Like, are these JavaScript paintings? That would be pretty wild. And again, like someone get MoMA on the phone here if that's what's going on here. Okay? Smoko. Ed Marola put out, there's just a ton of experimentation that's come out over the weekend here. Bald guy with fancy purse riding a bull at a cave of archaeological interest. And this totally does have that kind of Lascaux feeling to it. And again, like, look at the pattern in here that's being used. Just a wild kind of pattern. Almost looks like an eyeball or something. Lightly drawn and then just creating. And this rough kind of half painting but almost pixelated paintbrush. And there, look, you see it's almost like Lascaux here. The guys with the bow and arrows. And the hand. Okay, so we seem to have a direct reference to cave painting here. Which is pretty cool, isn't it? And then a guy with a purse. I mean, pretty experimental, irrational content we have going on here. Buy for $90, still available. I mean, when you look at this, I say not a bad deal. You want a one-of-one work of digital art for your collection? 90 Tezos, $90, please. I mean, not a terrible price when you look at it. Here's some other works. So this is an edition of 25 that was selling for $4. And yeah, it's sort of a kind of a Madonna and Child, kind of almost feels like Cimabue or Giotto here. And then weirdly, it's almost like, I want to say a St. George and the Dragon type thing with a guy on a skateboard and then people praying on the... So it seems to be taking kind of references from the history of art, but then doing whatever you want, say like having a man with a purse in Lascaux. That seems to be what's going on. I love these birds here too. And again, these really rich, kind of somewhat outrageous textures here. And the fact that they're kind of fuzzy, like, I mean, it kind of hits your sensibility. But I mean, what we may be seeing here is quite sophisticated. And I suspect it is. Okay. So Solar System, really cool title here too. In a big landscape here. And how odd is that with this chair being on this dragon figure? Very wild. Message, another one, using the more typical purple palette. And yeah, it just looks like, Lucifer and a demon, let's say, with like kind of a video game UI. So anyways, and just weird patterning. Here's another one, edition of 45, Tell Me Your Name. And what seems to be like a mermaid down here. And then this looks like a skeleton and just kind of buried with this kind of weird digital patterning. Again, look at the experimentation that's going on here. Like, we're seeing it kind of all over the place, which is quite interesting, isn't it? I can't help but feel that this is super bullish. Like, the boundaries are being pushed over here. Another one. This almost has like kind of a Amazing Spider-Man from the 60s kind of feel to it. I can't remember, almost like Dr. Octopus going across the city or something, but this is something completely different. Very interesting piece. Again, just kind of mystifying work here. nice sun, but is it in the sea? Is that just a reflection of the sun? And then you see the reflection on the person with these blurred out pixels. Formigo and a wild title. Here's one more, like a profile picture of sorts. Woo, one of one. Again, these blurred out pixels. Just looks like a hairy person with just like the tiny eyes here, just enough to make you go, okay, that's a face. Wild colors, again, just kind of like what I want to call outrageous experimentation here. Outrageous in a good way. Sold for 57 Tezos. Like people are getting it. People are liking it. People are buying it. Human kernel with a few. Make body the platform again. Well, this almost speaks to this whole idea of, using this profile picture as a template of sorts, like this, the idea of a profile or a portrait, and then just kind of running away with it. And human kernel does this a lot. And here you see like some patterning over here, some patterning over here, some wild stuff in the eyes, and then put some contrast it with just some kind of blurry digital painting. Like wild. More experimentation. Will there ever be another loop? Also human kernel. So human kernel puts out these one of ones, and you see, again, wild experimentation here in the head, and then just kind of a pixelated background. And then the shirt is an opportunity for more experimentation where it looks like it's kind of using a bit of both. Is there another one? Yes. Many secret things. Now, this one, what it kind of reminded me of is AI. How sometimes the eyes are kind of drifting. One of the eyes kind of had a bit of an AI feel to it, this one. And again, a ton of kind of digitalia, as I like to call it, in the background here, and just a rough cutout, really, it looks like, from somewhere else. Look at this. Anyways, I think I picked that one up. Name many secret things. Yes, I did. That an imaginary person could own. So anyways, wild piece. What was that? 30. I paid $30, but well worth it. I was happy to get it. Yuri J. So just more experimentation here. Again, like testing the boundaries of what's like can be appreciated here. And I say that in a good way. What these guys are doing is very courageous. I mean, they're putting this out here and saying, I declare this is art, okay? And people are buying it too. So Yuri J. Parsifal again with a very experimental work here. Again, was this January 15th? Like it's in the air, all of this wild, experimentation here. Here's a artist I've never seen before with a corrupt ROM, a glitch ROM, glitcheddavid.tez. Let's see if we can get it going. Very glitchy. So it goes for 30 seconds, so I won't play the whole thing, but you get the picture. Grand Theft Auto Advance. Buy for a Tezos, edition of 5. I might have to pick that up. And here's other work by Glitch David, since I've never seen him before, and I think a lot of people haven't seen him before. Here's just Corrupted ROM number 5. This looks really interesting. So just kind of a new artist on your radar. Because, I mean, again, we're dealing with the internet here. There's all sorts of people who we have missed. And, like, if your work hasn't been on here, I may just not have seen it. Again, this is like, I'm a team of one here. Actually, with some help. Actually, I do get links from people. I do actually get help. People like Ilay writing those summaries. But you take my point, like, so feel free to message, people message me with their work and sometimes I show it. Just a new work. We were looking at this artist as well, Enhagluk, who actually was doing quite well and has been kind of expanding with their kind of architectural, like 45-degree angle works. And now they're starting to put just like some light and just a few things inside the composition, some kind of TV noise here. So interesting. Editions of 37. I just wonder, has this sold out? It has. Remember, like, I think, like, maybe it was because of this show. I don't know. But we were looking not that long ago. Like, this sold out right away. I don't know what happened. Because when I picked it up, he basically had, like, when we were talking about it last week, there was basically none that were sold. It's at maybe one. Anyways, congrats to Inhagluk. That is cool, and looking forward to seeing more. Dan Control, Wall of Cigarettes. So remember the Vapo cigarette here, and now he's playing with it. Again, looks like just a really cool pop work, but digital, his own. This doesn't look derivative either. It's just having fun here with his works. So with previous kind of cigarettes, I think it's really cool. I actually, frankly, really like the background color. Really well chosen there, in my opinion. Buy for $4, really attractive work, Wall of Cigarettes. The experimentation is like never ending here, guys. Log and laptop. So Trésor Rodin explained with his surrealist theme, you could have it so much better, whatever, and then there's just a log with looking like, a bird would, designed for like a bird to go on, like a bird's nest or something, on a laptop, on a cheap laptop with a green background. Just interesting, made with Microsoft Paint, edition of 6. I guess none have sold yet, or at least when I loaded this up. They may have sold since. Mickey and Smurf from Rocano. Now, remember Rocano from last week? He's actually put out a ton of work. I think I brought up his page. He was the guy who was doing a lot of these gradient works, and I think I showed this B-Boy one, right? And all these gradient works that were very experimental. Again, we're back to this experimentation, guys. Like, it's pretty awesome. Like, to me, like, I don't want to just see like perfect things. Like, I love this experimentation. It makes me incredibly bullish on the depth of this scene. So here's a work, Mickey and Smurf. Again, just wild work. A Mickey spray painted Mickey spray painting a Smurf. You can see like the hat here and everything. Buy for a buck, edition of 10, digital airbrush. So pretty interesting. Cap'n with another beautiful work here, edition of 20. Continuing with this kind of, almost want to call it mystical pixel art. And I love how he's making just the stars move a bit. You don't need much to just kind of get that work moving. And anyways, beautiful work, oneness. Again, that kind of mystical pixel art. I'm without form, without limit, beyond space, beyond time. I'm in everything, everything is in me. More pixel artwork. This one was quite beautiful, wasn't it? Stalomir. Now, Stalomir, you may recall, is this artist who does these incredibly strange pixel artworks here. And so he did Jupiter with some other planets. It's Friday the 13th, but planets are in position. So anyway, I thought this was just a really beautiful planet here. And we like, nature and pixel art to me always are just such an awesome combination here. And we see it again with this beautiful picture of Jupiter in that massive storm, the big red dot. I think, no, what do they call it? It's the big storm anyway. That's the size of Earth that goes across Saturn's surface. And here is more work. Okay, so we looked at this Stalomir, and here is one of those works up close. Now, I don't know if this was burned or not. Glumpa Stew, HMO4, welcome to my kitchen. Take a seat. I won't leave you hungry. So kind of like an octopus. It's got all kind of a weird kind of alien feel to it, and this beautiful kind of frame here. Again, just kind of provocative, interesting, experimental, sophisticated work. Okay, that was a really weird one. Homeworld Memories, now going for $52.50. So continuing on, mech.txt, who I wasn't getting his notifications, so I missed a couple on Object, FYI, mech.txt. GM learning to be distant enough to be cold, but staying close enough to be warm, Goldilocks zone. Okay, so anyways, more pixel art of nature here. This looks like kind of a planetary thing in a landscape, kind of experimenting a little bit here. And here's another one that was released. I don't think we looked at this. Foreign Places. This was last week. I'm not sure if we looked at this or not, but kind of an Asian feel to it, and a moon that's kind of bleeding or something, which turns into a river. You tell me, like it's Foreign Places, and then maybe this is an Indonesian language here. Mech.txt is, I believe, based out of Indonesia. And here's just a beautiful new one, Refusal to Wither. This just came out. and already it's on secondary for $25. I wonder how he is doing it here. Sale for $6.50, all sold within basically 2 minutes. And yeah, now buy for $25. Kind of a nice poetic work of a tree off on its own. Kind of a winter work, isn't it? Continuing on, Popple with a new one, and this is an edition of 25. And this is called Baron of Pearls. Beware of the pearls he offers, for they come at a gruesome cost. So again, playing with these monsters that he was working on. So just another kind of same composition, but just, playing with different experiments within it. These look like eyeballs, and again, just kind of a gothic sort of thing. Buy for $14.99 on secondary. Just see, now he sells editions at 25, and yeah, these all sold for $9. Not bad. I mean, he's making over $200 here, putting out his art. Not bad at all. I mean, this starts to pay your rent. You put 4 works out like that a month, and all of a sudden you're paying rent. At least depending on where you live, of course. Armilk 88, Tired Pixels. So another pixel artwork. Again, just another kind of really interesting pixel artist. Tired Pixels up here. Looks like maybe a signature over there. Interesting colors with basically a futuristic building. You see the garage door opening and closing. So very interesting. Buy for $9.50 on secondary. Now, Tom Bombadil, another artist who we started looking at recently, he put out an edition of 1, Favorite Drink, and it went for $325, which is pretty good. I mean, when you look at, like Myth can go for sometimes $400, $300 or $400, or Rat Cloak. That's a pretty good price that Tom Bombadil got here. Maybe it's a sign of a heating up market, though. So that's pretty good for, the guy in the skull and the pixel art. Spectrum Collection, Favorite Drink. So congrats to him. Very well done. And a very nice sale for a 1 of 1. He must be tempted to do more of those. So this was a Manifold open edition, and look at this from Twic. GM Boy is my first open edition of 2023. Limited to 3 editions per wallet, holders of GM Boy will have the option to burn 2 editions for a special alternate version. Each edition is 0.015 ETH and will be available for 48 hours ending at 7 p.m. January 16th, which is today. So anyways, he's doing pretty well. He sold 75, and 75, I mean, what is that? That's probably over an ETH, So again, I think if you do something, I'm not sure how, is this, he's got 4,000 followers, so he's probably been around. Like, I'm wondering, is this an unknown artist that all of a sudden puts out something, looks good with a Game Boy, and all of a sudden is able to rake in an ETH, So anyway, so the open edition continues. Wrecked Radio. Okay, so very cool in the ETH scene a little bit. And so very interesting. This was also interesting. More experimentation here, guys. Bay Fragile. This was just a tweet, tweet some art that you're proud of. Tezos. And you see Tezos is here in this artwork. So I thought this was a really interesting piece of art here. So just kind of abstract splash on top of a screenshot interface. Great contrast. Very great contrast. Erase the content and then put some digital noise. Some very nice digital noise. Very interesting. So here's Bay Fragile. So FYI, just another new discovery here. More experimentation. François Gamma with some nice pixels here. Just a very nice colored pixel artwork. And yeah, there you have it. And interesting crop here. So buy for 3, edition of 20. And more experimentation over here from this. I don't think I have their the name of their profile, but I'll show you their work because you'll be familiar with it. So just an experimental GIF here. Right? Like, I mean, look at all the experimentation here. I mean, and I'm just like, this is kind of like in my regular feed, it feels like it's taken a turn towards the experimental. If I was to kind of like put my finger in the wind here, and it feels like we're kind of going a little experimental here, which I'm all for, by the way. Now, this person, to their credit, has been experimental in the past with, I think we've looked at some of, maybe some of their work. So anyways, actually, I don't know if I have, maybe the cat, I don't remember. Anyways, edgy and experimental for Anoia. Acid Boy with a couple of very nice works here. I think they have volume. Let me see. Yeah, they do. He's getting, like, pretty good. He's always been pretty good. It just gets better and better. I like the sound too, actually. Gotta be careful with this mic here. Let's just take a look. Do we have any bids? Yes. One for 0.8 ETH, which is $1,200. I mean, US, not bad. Here's another one. Transferred to Dr. Lee for 1 ETH. So $1,500 for this piece here. Gently. So this is Life on Mars. I think there might be another in the series, but we'll stick with that for right now because we have a ton more to go through here. Just some generative art that kind of worked with the Acid Boy. So this is pretty interesting, and it just goes on and on, I think. This is Matthew Hughes, January Day 12, Tessellation. I thought pretty good looking. I don't know if there's volume. There is not. Good looking work, and I like how the color changes actually along the way. Kurt Hustle Collective with an update, a neural net update. So some of you might remember the originals that came out. I'm sure we'll look at those at a future point. But anyways, there's a neural net update. Compliance. A compliance update. Become compliant today. From Kurt Hustle, edition of 10 sold out, and one on secondary for 23. More interesting music. House of the Model with another. Back to our cool party. Like, if we were to have a party, House of the Model should be doing the music, I think. Like, pretty cool music. So, pretty nice, right? Gets you kind of, again, if you weren't bullish about the experimentation, you can be bullish about the music, can't you? Let's see if I can halt that. Okay, so good morning and welcome to Tez Amp, a celebration of the people and music of the Tezos art community. Well, shout out to House of the Model, buy for 3, edition of 20. Continuing on as we near the end here, as we start to wrap up, just an interesting work. We'll look at the artist here in a second, of an earthquake. This person's on Super Rare. You know, one of my favorite parts of this is actually the wall. One of my favorite parts of this is the wall of the kitchen here. And look at all this in the background. I didn't even see that. It's like a Tokyo or something. Wow. Super cool. D. Tracy Jeffrey. And this is on Super Rare. So I haven't looked yet, but we will. Yeah, this is amazing. Totally. But maybe we will do an update and see if it's selling and what it's selling for. Antonio Loves. Now, you might remember him from doing these works over here, like the Saints and Prophets, which we've been looking at. So he put out something a little different. Sunflower, digital illustration. And this also sold a 1 of 1, and it did quite well, I believe. It got an offer. So just interesting kind of scenes from someone's life, it looks like, doesn't it? So comics inspired by Rex Orange County's music video. 225 to Tajin Burkock. So a nice sale, 225 Tezos, very nice. So Antonio Loves, who just kind of got started, had a wonderful, excellent start. Brazilian artist here. Blotter NFT, Birthdays, and here is Tabs. Yeah, so they're doing their kind of classical bicycle theme with, on the Blotter And that is basically it. I mean, kind of reminiscent of Albert Hoffman, if anything, the bicycle ride and that famous bicycle ride. Anyway, 1 of 1, not available yet. NFT yearbook. So we've maybe looked at this illustrator before, but I thought this was just kind of a good-looking work here. And so I thought I'd add it in. And Diela is an illustrator and fiber artist that has created stunning works which have led to many collaborations with major brands. So there you have it. So interesting. Tomeo, and I believe this is AI, but with a very painterly kind of work, almost reminiscent of Gerhard Richter with the candles a tiny bit. Still life with 3 candles and tulips. Now, Javier Tomeo was making those big kind of Japanese-style screen AI works, which were quite amazing. So this is a bit of a change. And it's even like, kind of signed over there. So just kind of interesting development from Javier Tomeo. And Moonchild put out a work, and this was for the Girls Gang event on Tezos. So you saw quite a few works come out. I think we showed a work also on Friday from Girls Gang. The Maria Amadova, the twins, that was also part of that. So anyways, that was happening. Immaterial is the name of the work. And another kind of Moonchild portrait here in typical kind of shapes. And let's just see how many. So there's 39 left. I might have loaded this a while ago, though. I'm not going to reload it because my mic might crash. Andy AI, who I'd never seen before, with kind of an interesting portrait here. Again, the portrait as template is almost the theme of this show a little bit. Look at all the experimentation again. Now the clouds are overcoming the face, and the hair is just a design pattern and everything. So continuing on. Oblique Oblivion, who we started looking at their AI works, which kind of have a bit of a Hieronymus Bosch feeling, or Peter Bruegel, particularly Bosch, I think, has the palaces of vulnerability, but then kind of curved out a lot. Here's another one, an architecture of vulnerability, a front view. So interesting colors here, and then you have some people looking on at this, almost like a Greek, almost like Mykonos or something. Continuing on, GM from Saturn. So now we're on Saturn, also Oblique Oblivion. So again, playing with these kind of wild patterns. So again, experimentation all over the place here. Robinson St. George. This was a pretty nice work. Again, kind of on that Bosch, Hieronymus Bosch, Peter Bruegel feel. Like, I mean, this really has a Bosch feel to it, doesn't it? Very nice work. And then riding a fish. Again, kind of has Bosch written all over it. My first sale on Foundation and a new all-time high. So congrats to Robinson St. George and Mr. Shapeless with some beautiful works here. As you see here, our Wanderer figure with these skies just continue to amaze. Almost like 2 moons here. Or is that the sun? Yeah, so anyways, reminiscent of Star Wars. And just a beautiful winter landscape here. Again, these kind of just huge, beautiful landscapes. Here's just the moon, Timeless Hills. And this last one was super stunning. Happy Sunday. And it looks like kind of an Arctic type thing, but it's almost just a surrealist landscape. Again, reminiscent of Yves Tanguy and several spheres in the sky here. And these experimental skies and shapes and everything. So super cool there. And Sum with a new work, again, using this super heavily textured style, which I really like a lot. And nice low editions of 11, buy for 3 Tezos, buy it for a song. And then some physical work here, also for the Girls Gang, I don't know if you call it festival, the Girls Gang event that was on Tezos. So I believe this is physical, watercolor. Let me just show you. Botanical art, botanical watercolor. So I think this is a physical work that is scanned in, I'm assuming, and we have another one here. And so these watercolor style botanical illustration made in the technique of layered painting. This work has more than 10 layers. I still think that means physical, so FYI, but I'm not positive on that. Botanical watercolors. You can't tell these days, it could be digital watercolor. And Martin Joe with a rare sketch. So Sketchbook 003 Squeeze. So this is cool to see Martin Joe actually sketching. So this seems to be physical. You can sort of see the paper here. Very interesting just to see kind of the contrast with the Kinky Bear AI work, right? That is your show, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, take care, stay experimenting. I was going to say, all right, till next time.